Who are a few of the worst cops who aren't fit to protect and serve? Let's find out. Starting with number 6, the medical emergency. A San Diego police officer resigned after a series of events that ended with the officer in a compromising situation with some lady he arrested. Officer Anthony Hare, a 2-year veteran of the San Diego Police Department, was involved in the arrest of 2 car theft suspects on the night of August 15, 2023. One of the suspects was a woman with an outstanding bench warrant. Hare was supposed to be transporting the woman first to police headquarters and then to another detention center. But during the transport, a conversation between Hare and the woman, captured on Hare's body camera, began to take an unusual turn. The woman asked if Hare was married. At least she's classy, right? And then made several suggestive comments. Hare reminded her that everything was being recorded and warned her not to speak inappropriately. But despite his warnings, the conversation continued to escalate. As they neared the detention center, Hare turned off his body camera and slowed his vehicle, driving onto a dark residential street just a few blocks away from their destination. Eventually, the cruiser stopped and, well, you know. After about 20 minutes, Hare called another officer, frantically asking for help as he had locked himself in the back seat with the woman. The officer who responded described Hare as panicked and embarrassed. Yeah, we bet he was. Wouldn't you have loved to have seen his face when he realized the door wouldn't open? Anyway, investigators later said that Hare said he thought the woman was experiencing a medical emergency, which led him to check on her in the back seat. However, the investigation revealed traces of Hare's special sauce on his belt, so obviously there were questions about his story. Both Officer Hare and the woman denied any inappropriate activity. Hare said he was merely checking on the woman, apparently very thoroughly checking on her, when the car door accidentally closed on him. He also said he knocked his body camera off its clip while getting out of the cruiser. You know, normal things that happen every day in the life of a police officer. It's like they're always knocking off their body cameras and locking themselves in the backs of their squad cars. Despite these totally believable claims, the evidence gathered during the investigation led to Hare's resignation less than a month after the incident. The San Diego Police Department released the internal investigation report, but it remains unclear if Officer Hare will face any criminal charges at the time of this video. What a dumb way to get caught, right? It sounded like he ended up having a bad hair day. Number 5, the wrongfully accused. Yessenia Garcia was leaving a bar in Scottsdale, Arizona with some friends when she discovered her car with a smashed windshield. Surveillance footage showed someone jumping on her car and breaking the glass. So of course, she freaks out and her friends flag down some nearby officers who were investigating a hit and run. But instead of assisting, the officers instead just accused Garcia of being involved in the crash. An officer explained to Yessenia that a guy got hit and that her car was involved, according to his body camera footage. Garcia was confused as hell since she didn't realize they saw her as a suspect. So Garcia was promptly arrested on charges of DUI, leaving the scene of an accident, and possession of paraphernalia. Officers even stripped her clothes to collect what they believed to be glass evidence, which doesn't really make sense since she would have had to be hit by her own car. Scottsdale police later admitted the arrest was a mistake. Officers involved received some soft discipline. Scottsdale Police Chief Jeff Walther acknowledged the errors, releasing a statement about how people make mistakes and whatever. That's not really an excuse though, right? Eventually, the Scottsdale City Council approved a $200,000 payment to settle Garcia's wrongful arrest lawsuit. 3 years after her wrongful arrest, Garcia expressed relief at moving on from the ordeal, saying it felt like a big sigh. Probably more accurately, a $200,000 sigh. After the incident, it was clear that the officers didn't properly review the surveillance footage before making the arrest. One of the cops received a 40-hour unpaid suspension, while another had a 20-hour unpaid suspension. Number 4, the vulnerable widow. Former police officer Sam Smith, no, not this Sam Smith that made that one song and then got all weird, was sentenced to 20 months in prison for defrauding an elderly widow of over $23,000. While serving in the UK, Smith befriended an 81-year-old woman suffering from cancer and dementia. Taking advantage of her vulnerability, he used her bank and credit cards to buy expensive things like a 65-inch television, motorcycle gear, and gaming equipment. Smith first met the widow in late 2019 during a welfare check at her home. Over time, he gained her trust and visited her frequently both on and off duty. The woman, who had no family or support network, was housebound and didn't use the internet. When she passed away in late 2020, her lawyer noticed some unusual online transactions on her bank statements. Investigations revealed that Smith had spent thousands of dollars online on a bunch of expensive stuff, and a search of his home uncovered many of those purchased goods. At first, the police didn't connect Smith to the fraud, but a later review in 2022 linked him to the crimes. Smith, who was on a leave of absence, resigned from the police force in mid-2023 once his fraudulent activities were exposed. Detective Constable Emily Shepard, who led the investigation, expressed her sorrow over the widow's fate. She mentioned the woman's independent spirit and regretted that a former colleague had exploited her. Superintendent Joe Arundale, head of the Professional Standards Department, also condemned Smith's actions, saying that they weren't representative of the police force's values. Number 3. The gang leader boyfriend. Former NYPD officer Gina Mester was involved in a scandalous affair with the leader of the so-called Shooting Boys gang. Her actions, which included tipping off her gang member boyfriend about police activities and sharing confidential information, led to serious criminal charges. Mester joined the NYPD in 2013 and was assigned to the Public Safety Unit at the 52nd Precinct in the Bronx. Her career, however, was marred by numerous complaints and lawsuits. She began her illicit relationship with Andrew Caballo Dunn, the leader of the gang, around 2019. With an inconspicuous name like Shooting Boys, you'd never expect that this gang was notorious for crimes, right? You're probably like, what? But apparently their crimes included things such as trafficking and shooting things. In June of 2020, Mester started feeding confidential information to the gang, including details of a federal grand jury investigation. She even provided the name of a witness who was subsequently visited by the gang in an attempt to intimidate them. Her betrayal escalated when Doan took out a rival gang member later that same year. Mester, who was one of the officers assigned to the case, sent Doan the surveillance footage and updates about the police's manhunt. Luckily, Mester's actions finally caught up with her. By May of 2022, she had left the NYPD, but federal prosecutors unsealed a 15-count indictment against 10 members of the Shooting Boys, including her boyfriend Doan. The most serious charge carried a potential 30-year federal prison sentence. Mester ultimately received a 70-month prison sentence, which translates to approximately 5 years and 10 months, for her role in obstructing a federal investigation and aiding a gang leader in evading capture. Additionally, she'll serve 2 years of supervised release following her prison term. This stuff straight up sounds like it's out of some crime movie, doesn't it? How does she figure no one would notice she was associated with the leader of a gang that literally named themselves after the crimes they're known to commit? Number 2. The tipped-off friend. Natalie Mottram from the UK was sentenced to 3 years and 9 months for leaking sensitive police information to a criminal friend. Working as an intelligence analyst for Cheshire Police, she tipped off Jonathan Kay about an ongoing covert investigation into organized crime. Mottram joined Cheshire Police in 2017 as an apprentice and later moved to the Northwest Regional Organized Crime Unit known as the ROCU. During Operation Venetic, a major investigation into the EncroChat encrypted communication platform used by criminals, Mottram accessed confidential information and shared it with Kay. She was caught in an undercover sting by the National Crime Agency in June of 2020. Her leak was discovered when a message revealed that Kay knew about law enforcement's access to EncroChat. This leak endangered the entire investigation, which aimed to disrupt criminal networks across Europe. When Mottram's superiors grew suspicious, they set up a fake intelligence log about Kay. Mottram, trusting her close relationship with Kay and his partner Leah Bennett, shared this fake information. Surveillance and telecom data confirmed her blabbermouthedness, leading to the arrest of Mottram, Kay, and Bennett. The authorities also recovered $200,000 in cash from Kay in Bennett's home. Mottram admitted to misconduct, perverting the course of justice, and unauthorized access to computer systems. Kay received a sentence of 2 years and 6 months, while charges against Bennett were dropped. John McKeon, head of the NCA's anti-corruption unit, talked about what a big deal Operation Venetic really was, noting the seizure of firearms, contraband, and the prevention of numerous threats to life. Operation Venetic has resulted in over 3,000 arrests and more than 1,100 convictions, with sentences totaling over 7,300 years. As it turns out, crime really doesn't pay, especially when the cops have your chat history or your search history. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay tuned right here for our past release to find out the exact reasons why armored trucks aren't really safe at all. Number 1. The Glam Cop. Rasvinder Agalu, a former London police officer, was dismissed after being arrested for allegedly dealing Class A substances. Searches of her 2 homes revealed illegal activities. In one raid, officers found Class A contraband, paraphernalia, a large amount of cash, and a police radio. The second raid uncovered body armor, handcuffs, uniform items, case papers, and interview discs. They also discovered a large number of, let's call it some special plants. Known for her glamorous appearance, Agalu often received compliments from colleagues who suggested she pursue a more creative role. She shared that she takes pride in her appearance, starting her day with makeup, a double espresso with coconut milk, and a gym session to prepare for the day ahead. Describing herself as fun, loving, and chatty, she acknowledged that these traits sometimes got her into trouble. Agalu was initially arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to supply contraband, but somehow wasn't charged due to insufficient evidence. Wait, what? What other possible evidence were they looking for? However, in spite of nearly 20 years of service, a misconduct panel decided her actions were a gross breach of trust, ending her career in law enforcement. Agalu had harbored dreams of becoming a film actress or TV presenter. Despite her ambitions, she now has to deal with the consequence of being added to the barred list held by the College of Policing, a register of individuals who've been dismissed from policing roles and are barred from rejoining any police force in the UK. It ensures she can never work in law enforcement again. The fact that she was only kicked out of the force after investigators found mountains of evidence in her 2 homes and somehow said it was insufficient makes us think she may have had some really good friends higher up. Brian Newell, a manager at one of Garda World's armored truck branches, was given a bizarre order in 2018 to load all the coins stored at his facility in Connecticut onto a truck bound for Massachusetts. Auditors from Bank of America were taking a trip to Garda World's Massachusetts location to count money that Garda was being paid to protect, and some of it was missing. Garda is well known for their armored trucks that move money from place to place, but they are also in the business of storing and protecting money in vaults for U.S. banks. After about 8 years of operation, Garda became an industry leader, holding money for some of the largest banks in the world. Garda's U.S. operations doesn't publish a client list, but it has been determined that they have held money for JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, PNC Bank, and TD Bank. The company also stores money for the Federal Reserve. Garda is a Canada-based company, but has grown far into the US and beyond. They consistently post strong operating margins that have allowed it to attract investors and grow rapidly. In just 15 years, Garda has increased its annual revenue from under $200 million to $2.7 billion. As Garda skyrocketed into the industry, a Tampa Bay Times investigation uncovered deception at the core of Garda, deep within their vaults. The investigation found that Garda's vaults had lost millions of dollars and concealed the missing money from the banks that hired them. It was found that some of the vaults even lacked basic safeguards, which gave way to unsolved thefts and an overall chaotic atmosphere. Brian Newell's Garda branch in Connecticut was a small location, only holding some $20,000 belonging to Bank of America and 2 other banks, and he sent every single coin of that $20,000 to Massachusetts. After the coins had arrived in Massachusetts, Newell learned that it hadn't been enough. There was a major money shortage at the Massachusetts branch, even after several other New England branches had also sent money. Garda sends banks a daily accounting of their balance in each vault, so any discrepancy should have been reported long before high levels of money vanished. However, company documents from 2014 revealed that Garda executives were well aware of the missing money. The 2014 document estimated roughly $9 million were missing, and we can assume Garda's response wasn't urgent as the case continued to build up until 2018. In 2015, email records show that Garda employees discussed how to keep TD Bank from discovering that a single Garda branch was missing $924,000 of the bank's money. With employees being fully aware that money was magically vanishing, honesty wasn't at the forefront of the company's values. In 2017 and 2018, employees at a St. Louis Garda branch hurriedly stalled bank auditors in a conference room while workers rushed to move boxes of quarters and dimes, each containing hundreds of dollars from one bank's account to another. The auditors were then presented with the number of coins they expected, but they were actually looking at another bank's funds. Newell said that Garda employees would have bamboozled the auditors since they had no clue where the correct money was. Newell was eventually terminated from his position as manager at the Stratford branch in 2019 after complaining about safety problems. Newell's termination goes to show how severe the deception was at Garda, but Garda remained unwilling to admit fault. The company claims that any discrepancies detected were quickly investigated, reported, and resolved, and that inventory reconciliation is a normal part of business for a cash vault operation. Despite Garda's clear mismatching between words and actions, they have become a global private security powerhouse, taking on important roles that extend outside the U.S. currency system. The company has branched into other divisions, providing college campus securities and carrying out sensitive defense contracts, such as protecting the U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan. With money protection and holding comes the well-known Garda armored truck empire. This aspect of the company is operated out of Boca Raton, Florida, shuttling money between businesses and Garda vaults across the state of Florida. But as with other branches of Garda, there are indications that the company's rapid growth came at the expense of basic safeguards that are the norm at other companies. In March, it was revealed that the armored truck business was taking shortcuts on truck maintenance and training. Trucks lacked reliable brake systems, seatbelts, or even seats. Hundreds of people have been injured in Garda truck crashes, and at least 19 have been killed at the expense of these safety shortcuts. In as little as 3 months, sometimes it's not just crashes. Sometimes it's simple human error. For example, back in November of 2021, a Sectron Security armored truck's doors somehow popped open as it was going down I-5 in California. The cash, which was mostly $1 and $5 bills, flew out of the back of the truck, and drivers actually stopped in active lanes of traffic to scoop up the lost money. There were 3 fatal crashes due to mechanical failures or driver error. Obviously, employee theft isn't the only thing armored truck companies have to worry about. Back in October of 2019, Brinks' armored truck driver, Sabrina Gimeno, was making a delivery to a bank in Colorado when 3 men ambushed her during a heist. The robbers took over $100,000 in cash and totally terrified Gimeno. Interestingly, just days later, Brinks fired her despite her being with the company for 7 years. Brinks claimed that they had protocols in place and that Gimeno didn't follow their protocols. Joseph James, vice president of finance at Garda's U.S. branch from 2013 to 2015, confirmed 2 employees' statements that said the company attempted to conceal both the fallout of its safety problems as well as the issues in the vaults. The employees also stated that they were told to manipulate financial records to minimize the potential costs of the armored truck wrecks and increase the company's value. James said that many of Garda's practices made him highly uncomfortable, and that Garda's approach to handling money created problems big enough to undermine the premise of the business. In December 2013, Garda struck a deal with Bank of America that helped it jump to the top of the vault industry. Bank of America signed a 12-year deal agreeing to outsource many of its vaults to Garda, selling about 32 buildings and essentially loaning 1,000 employees to Garda's vault operation. Both Garda and Bank of America celebrated the deal, with Garda instantly doubling its vault business and Bank of America reducing overhead costs. But as Garda publicly announced their successes, executives in charge of expansion were discovering millions of dollars had gone missing, and the company had no idea where the money had run off to. Shelley Crandall had been hired to oversee Garda's vault several months before the Bank of America deal was finalized, and she later began to uncover that multiple locations were missing money. Patrick Prince, the chief financial officer for Garda's operations across the world and second in command to Garda's founder and CEO, gave Crandall the approval to investigate. After about 9 months of Crandall's investigations, she found that roughly $9 million was missing across Garda's vaults. Some losses had existed for more than 2 years, insinuating a complete lack of care on the company's part. Crandall created an official document detailing the extent of the losses, asking for the employees responsible to be held accountable, and urging the company to replace the money. The document's requests for actions were largely ignored by Garda, and vault managers continued to deceive auditors by showing the money for a specific account that actually belonged to another bank. Meanwhile, theft continued to occur in Garda's vaults. Footage from vault security cameras were of such poor quality that it looked like the lenses were covered in frost. To make matters worse, the Garda checks on vaults were so disorganized and infrequent that they often didn't realize money had gone missing until a client pointed it out. In another instance, Garda lost $76,000 during a delivery in Springfield, Massachusetts. The company was seemingly aware that the money had disappeared, but they didn't investigate until a month later. They accused 2 employees of stealing the money, but the video footage they presented to the courts were so poor that they were unable to prove anything. A judge dismissed all charges against the employees. In the same Springfield, Massachusetts branch, theft was a major issue. One employee was accused of stealing money that she had stuffed in her bra and shoes. Another slowly racked up $30,000 of loot over a 3-month period, taking it little by little. A third employee admitted that he was left alone with open bags of money, that the temptation was too strong, and he stole somewhere around $71,900. Even more than having dishonest employees, Garda as a company was sloppy. They didn't run routine checks or have security measures in place to prevent theft from occurring. In fact, 3 money bags containing a whopping $390,000 vanished off a Garda armored truck in 2013. Garda couldn't figure out where the money went until an ex-employee began spending lavishly in Las Vegas and turned up at the bank with a shoebox stuffed full of cash. The ex-employee was ultimately convicted of money laundering and the transportation of stolen money in connection with the crime. Federal prosecutors were unable to charge the employee with actually stealing the cash, in part due to the lack of visual evidence as there was no camera coverage. At the trial, a former Garda employee testified that Garda truck doors could be popped open with a broom handle, a trick many employees caught onto, and the trucks were often left unattended. Sometimes it's not just crashes. Sometimes it's simple human error. For example, back in November of 2021, a Sectron Security armored truck's doors somehow popped open as it was going down I-5 in California. The cash, which was mostly $1 and $5 bills, flew out of the back of the truck, and drivers actually stopped in active lanes of traffic to scoop up the lost money. To the surprise of many, Garda did have money handling policies in place. For one, Garda armored trucks were never supposed to be left unattended, although we know that policy was followed loosely at best. Additionally, company rules stated that employees couldn't leave work for the night until every bill and coin was accounted for, but it's obvious that policy was ignored. External detectives testified that Garda employees regularly didn't follow money handling policies as they dealt with multiple other unsolved Garda thefts at the same time. Each Garda branch had its own unique handful of issues, but across the company, broken down equipment and lack of protocols were regular problems that made it easy to lose track of cash. One employee said that he would be stressing out about thousands of dollars missing, but no one else was. If there was a shortage or an overage, it was no big deal because it happened all the time. Garda constantly attempted to shift the blame to another party. According to the US government, banks are required to keep meticulous track of customers' money, even if they outsource handling to another company. Although certain banks were storing money in Garda's vaults, it's technically still the bank's vault, and they must make sure it's operated in a safe and regulated manner. Recurring vault imbalances are considered risky by banks, but in the case of Garda, it's likely that several of their bank clients were unaware that the money they were seeing in audits wasn't theirs. Garda was fooling clients in a way that was only seen one other time with a company called Revere Armored. In the 90s, the Revere Armored case told a tale quite like Garda. They weren't telling banks that used its vaults that millions of dollars had gone missing. Revere sent banks fraudulent balance sheets and physically moved money between accounts to deceive auditors. The fraud came to light when a competitor of Revere's filmed Revere drivers leaving trucks unattended and tipped it off to the company's insurer. The insurer quickly dropped the company as a client and notified the FBI, who later uncovered the vault problems. The couple that owned Revere claimed to be victims of internal theft, but rather they had been stealing from clients to fund their personal gambling habit. The couple ended up in prison for bank fraud, but the attorney on that case argued that banks shared some fault for the disappearance of the money. Revere lost an estimated $35 million, and in the end, it was recommended that banks eat the losses. Despite the outlook of both Revere and Garda, all employees of these establishments weren't corrupt. In 2016, Garda's risk manager, Christine Buquin, sent an email to her supervisor detailing extensive safety problems at the company. Buquin also accused the company of misrepresenting Garda's financial condition. Garda set aside money to pay legal claims related to crashes and workers' compensation, but they had been manipulating these numbers to attain a better financial outlook. Buquin herself had been directed to manipulate the reserves to achieve whatever goal Garda had at the time. For instance, Buquin was instructed to increase the amount in reserves to make the company look worse just before Garda's owner, Stephen Chrétien, bought back the company's stock to take Garda private. She later was instructed to lower estimates in reserves to improve Garda's financial picture by millions. The day after Buquin sent the email to her supervisor, she was laid off. The company claimed that Buquin had a grudge against Garda World and even sued to have company documents returned. Since Garda's allegations against Buquin, she has become an outspoken critic of the company. Buquin revealed that she was given specific numbers to hit in order to keep reserves as low as possible, for as long as possible. Even with the wonky reserves that were constantly ordered to shift from high to low, the actual funds in reserves weren't sufficient to cover the severity of the incidents that occurred at Garda. A 2013 crash in Los Angeles left an aspiring nurse and Garda driver with permanent brain damage. Garda valued the case at $234,000, but the risk department believed it would cost between $2 million to $3 million. More incidents such as this occurred, emphasizing Garda's emphasis on maintaining their public image over being prepared in crisis. Buquin's anxiety around the company's actions were so heightened that she reached out to a senior claims consultant at Wells Fargo to ask for guidance. At the time, Wells Fargo was helping Garda manage its insurance policies. Buquin was honest with the Wells Fargo team and admitted her distress, but Wells Fargo did nothing more than remove references to Garda's methods of calculating reserves from the company's documents. Overall, the Garda World case was a fiasco, although Garda touts itself as a runaway success. Garda saw expansive growth in its formative years, and much of the growth came from acquisitions. However, these acquisitions were financed with huge amounts of debt. As concerns about Garda's ability to pay off debt grew, stock prices began to plummet. In 2012, Chrétien took the company private alongside equity firm Apax Partners. Since Chrétien's acquisition of Garda, the company has continued to expand, completing around 10 major acquisitions in 2018 and 2019 alone. Operating profits have grown steadily and significantly for the past 6 years. Despite surface-level success, Garda has failed to pay for basics necessary for simple operational costs. With Garda's poor truck maintenance, lack of vault security, and overall apathetic attitude towards customer service, it's clear that the priority is making money, not spending it. At this time, Chrétien has continued to applaud their acquisition of Garda, calling it a resounding success, despite facing multiple bankruptcies and scandal after scandal. In June of 2021, Chrétien was awarded a $2 million bonus in acknowledgement of how well he runs the company. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you'd rather have: no taxes for the rest of your life, or free food for the rest of your life.